Before answering to your question, first of all, thank you very much, Minister, for your nice words about me. I found it good. Thank you very much. The introduction of your analysis touched on a point I want to pick up. We are living in changing times, quite clear. But the change is from the early morning to the late night. You as a journalist, you know it. The news of 6 o'clock in the morning is history at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. The social networks, the mediatic world in which we are living leads to, for politicians, for businessmen, for journalists, for everybody, but for decision makers, for responsible people like a governor in a region and the future commissioner in Brussels knows it as a member of parliament, a minister, or a head of a newspaper. The social networks, our digital world is creating every day higher pressure on decision makers. And the expectation of citizens is they must find a solution now. The problem arrives in the morning. Millions and millions of commentaries are making proposals that creates the feeling there are ways to solve the problems, only these politicians are unable to do it. This is the reality of everybody in political life. The pressure to deliver solutions, even for problems arising now, in the next 2 hours, is the expectation, but it is impossible. We are living in a period of acceleration, every day more. And with a new technology, artificial intelligence, we will face even higher challenges, more difficulties. Why I'm mentioning this? Acceleration is what is the most difficult thing in my life today. But as a Democrat, I must admit, democracy is a slow system. In democracy, everybody has the right to participate. Everybody has the right to be heard. Everybody has the right to participate in decision making. In a parliament, every member of a parliament has the right to contribute. The political groups, the opposition must be heard, the government must explain, a compromise must be found. Not in Greece, you have an absolute majority, clear. But if you have a coalition government like we have in Germany, it needs time. And if we want participation, if we want to involve citizens in the decision making, because our experience is as nearer the decision making happens to the citizens, as higher is the acceptance. As far away a decision making is from the citizens, as lower is the acceptance. One of the biggest problems of the European Union, that people think I have no influence, I'm not involved, they are not discussing about me in Brussels, far away.
Distance.
That distance. So we have to involve everybody, but then we need time. And this is the contradiction of our period. The acceleration on one hand, and the need of time of democracy on the other side. And this is, for the time being, creating a political vacuum, a societal vacuum. And this vacuum is filled by all the extremists from right-wing or left-wing, who have for everything a solution, a simple one. In my country, the right-wing extremists, they have a solution, migrants. Migration is the mother of all problems. Which is, by the way, very, very dangerous in my country. The German ambassador is present here. I'm deeply concerned that the 1st of September, which is the day of the beginning of the Second World War, committed by the Hitler Nazi regime, in a part of our country, a right-wing extremist party, with a leader who speaks literally about a new commemoration strategy we need in Germany, who calls the field of commemoration in the center of Berlin for the 6 million killed Jews a monument of disgrace. He won that election. So I'm worried, because this is dangerous if you reduce the complexity of problems to one single problem, causing all the following problems. This is not admissible because it is not true, and it is dangerous if it is against the minority. And this is a fascist strategy all over in Europe. They identify a minority, and then it happens like this. We have the problems because these people are there. If they would not be here, we wouldn't have the problems. Therefore, they have to disappear, and then the problems will be solved. This sounds to the past of the 20th century. Therefore, we need a kind of, I have no proposal for it, but first of all, we have to make that point. Acceleration in our digital world on one hand is, for the time being, a threat for democracy. That means that Democrats all over in the world must think how to solve that problem. My feeling is, with the instruments of the digital world, we can involve much more people in the decision-making as we do it today. Traditional political parties, like your party here or my party in Germany, the democratic center parties, the democratic left parties, the democratic right parties must consider how we can introduce in this digital world our messages with simple words, but more differentiated than the right or left-wing extremists do it for the time being. In the 21st century, let's be honest, even a country like Germany alone is lost. We need Europe more than ever. I give you a figure. Germany has 82 million inhabitants. We have 82 million citizens, the biggest member state of the European Union. This is a middle-sized Chinese province. China has 1.4 billion citizens. India, the same. These two neighbor countries have 2.8 billion people. Greece has 11 million citizens. Governor, commissioner in Spain, forgive me, but 11 million people is half of the capital of China. Beijing has 22 million inhabitants. If we want to survive in the 21st century, it will not happen on the level Austria on one hand and China on the other side. I know the Austrians, they believe it is the other way around, but will not happen. The Inflation Reduction Act of the United States of America was not anti-European, but not in favor of Europe. Ordered and decided by a pro-transatlantic president. What will happen if this shameful person should be re-elected president of the United States? I don't want to imagine. Therefore, from the bottom of my heart, I hope that Kamala Harris will win the election in the United States. That's for us Europeans, for sure, better. But it will not solve one problem. The European countries alone, all of them, Greece like Germany, Malta like Finland, Sweden like Austria, Belgium like Italy, alone is in the economic competition of the 21st century. And this is the decisive one. The Economist writes every day about it. Too weak. If we are united, we are strong enough. Because our shared economy, our single market, is still the target for all of them. The Chinese want to export their goods to the single market of the European Union. The Americans as well. What the European Union should not admit and not allow Commissioner, this is my recommendation to you in the future Commission, is that unfair competition, for example, with subsidies paid by the United States of America to their companies, corresponds with a competition policy within a competitiveness strategy within the European Union, which is forbidden for member states to subvent their own companies as a violation of our internal competition rules. But in the same time, we keep our market open for goods from those countries who give subsidies to their companies. This is an illoyal competition allowed by the European Union. I argued during my time as President of the European Parliament always for, and I was very disappointed of my own political family, for trade agreements. My own political family was against trade agreements because they considered this as to submit the European Union under the rules of the American capitalists. That was wrong. Because within a trade agreement, you can include minimal social standards, minimal environment standards, minimal respect for the transformation rules of the green transformation, green transition we need in the world. Because if in a competition, let's take a Chinese company, the lowest social standard, the lowest environment standard, the lowest salary standards corresponds with our guarantee of minimal salaries, our respect for environmental standards, for our right of strike for workers, trade union rights, etc., social security, etc., then quite clear European companies are less competitive than companies from these countries. This could, in trade agreements, be corrected if the member states of the European Union stick together and combine the existing single market with a political common strategy. And therefore, I'm always advocating for enlargement. How to making pathways to prosperity, solidity and cohesion for Southeast Europe is to build the European Union in that way and to include Southeast European countries, not yet a member of the European Union, within that European Union, at least within the European single market, before perhaps joining the Union as a full member, because I take another point, your description of the discussions within the European Council, if 27 are added on the same rules with 33, that will even be worse than it did already today. But we should not argue, first we have to reform and then they can join. We must find a way to include them in those parts of the European cooperation which increase prosperity, solidity and cohesion for these countries as a step of development to join then a later reformed European Union. This is my view since a very long time. And I want to conclude with one closing observation. The sovereignty of a state, the national state as the frame existing to protect the interests of the citizens, is a European invention. This was invented in Europe. The time of enlightenment in the 18th century, repartition of power, was a proposal of a French philosopher, Montesquieu, was developed with a lot of fights for democracy, and after the Second World War, endorsed in more or less all Western European and later then Eastern European countries. This is a European thing. It is European history. My country, my nation, my sovereignty, our culture. But I know this is very difficult to understand and to accept. I have nothing against German culture, against Bavarian culture. I have nothing against Austrian music. I have nothing against Verdi, and I like Beethoven. And Albrecht Dürer was a wonderful German painter, and Sibelius, a wonderful Finnish composer. European culture is heterogeneous and wonderful, but for Beethoven and Mozart, my grandchildren will not get jobs. What we need is not to stick to our past, neither the cultural past nor the political past. What we have to be is courageous and doing steps for the future, and therefore I argue for the United States of Europe. That will not be a kind of United States of America on European soil. I can't transform a Greek in a Californian or a German in a Texanian. It's impossible. We need our identity. But our identity is not enough to tackle the challenges of the 21st century. Thank you very much.
Well done.